Thanks for the introduction, Seema. Thanks a lot. Hello, everyone.
We have Chandresh today and Harinderjeet, sorry, I'm
Yeah,
interrupting, who will be taking the security operations domain. Chandresh will be taking the initial part, wherein he would be covering IR/DR part, and then the other part, Harinderjeet Singh will be covering. You can start, Chandresh.
sure. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Seema. Hello, everyone. Um, so let me jump straight into this.
Your voice is a little slow.
Feeble. Sorry, yeah,
Sorry,
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah, your voice is a bit feeble.
it's feeble. Just a second. Mm, Just give me 1 minute. Is it better now?
Somewhat.
For me, it is the same.
Yeah, same always.
Now, is it better?
No, it's the same for me at least. So anyone can. Yeah.
Are you using mic or
I'm
open?
using mic.
Okay.
So is this better, or I'll
Okay.
switch the input? Is this better?
Now it is
Yes.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Now I'm not using mic. That's the best part. Okay. So domain 7, which is which is security operations, and it is what we do day in, day out. Uh, you guys may be familiar with Security Operations Center. It is very, very closely tied to that. Now, coming to the context of this domain vis-a-vis the CISSP exam that you're most probably going to take is it carries some 13% weightage in the entire set of questions that you're going to see in the exam. So that is there. And then you have a snapshot of what are the key topics covered within this domain. So what I'll be covering is on the right side, primarily focused on incident management, detection technologies, how resiliency can be built, what is your backup and what is your BCP and DRP, etc. And within that, you have a lot of topics which are related to uh, all of these things: HA, quality of service, fault tolerance, backup, recovery testing, etc. So that's what I'll be covering, and then I will hand it over to Harinderjeet Singh, and he'll cover the rest of the topics. Okay, so without further ado, I'll jump into the incident management piece. Just a second. It's not IM, it is IM. Okay. Okay, so like a lot of things, like a lot of things, your incident management also has a life cycle approach or a staged approach to everything. And it should always start with detecting an incident and being able to classify an incident as an incident rather than an event. So you have a lot of things happening in your enterprise, and you want to be sure as to whatever is negatively impacting your environment is categorized as such, and those things become incidents. Everything else is event. So if you look at it here, it's events versus incidents versus disaster. Primarily, anything which is happening in your organization and you can see it, that is an event, generally logged in a scene and generally monitored by a SOC team. The life cycle approach, coming back to the incident management life cycle approach, this is the stages of life cycle in incident management. You start with detecting, so you should have capability, technology, procedures, tools, and people built into your environment to be able to detect if there is an incident happening, ongoing incident happening in your enterprise. Then you should be able to respond to it. So if now you know that whatever you're seeing or whatever you're looking at is not a regular event, but it's an incident. You have categorized it, and now you should be responding to it. How do we respond? We try to cut the losses there, and we try to contain it. So that is how you respond to it. Then we mitigate. So when we are mitigating, we just try to figure out, is there any lateral movement, any other thing which is infected. So say a web service, somebody has used your web server for ingress, for example, using a vulnerability like what recently have been discovered in Next.js, where a user can bypass authentication. So say if that kind of a vulnerability exists in your environment and somebody has used your web server for initial access, they can then laterally move, or then they can move into your application layer. And if say application servers are not protected properly, they then the attacker can move laterally. So anything which is in in the same network, say if you have a flat network again, so that can be problematic. And a flat network is basically where you have everything grouped, all servers put in a single subnet, rather than having a micro segmentation in place, or dividing the entire network into different zones. So yeah, an attacker uses a vulnerability on your web server for ingress, gains access of your web application. Now they can move in to your app server, and then app server can be part of a broader set of servers which are running on the same network. And then it can lead to lateral movement. What is lateral movement? Is when somebody escapes that initial application server that they kind of attacked or gain hold of, and then move from that to another server which is in the vicinity, so which is in the same network. So that is primarily lateral movement. So if that is the kind of thing happening, you should be able to identify if a lateral movement has happened. Typically, we do threat hunting, and specifically on the specific IOCs, which is indicator of compromise. So at the mitigate phase, you primarily uh, now know that you're under attack, and you just want to cut your losses. You want to identify what are the things which are infected, and then most probably isolate them, take them offline, or re-image your service, etc. Those are all the things that you do at the mitigate phase. Then comes reporting. So many laws, many regulations require you to disclose any incident or any breach. For example, GDPR. If in case of any breach, you are supposed to let authorities know within 72 hours of you knowing the breach, or your organization getting to know that there is a breach happening. So that kind of communication comes into the reporting phase of the incident management. And then you have the recovery phase. So you have contained the issue or the incident at the mitigate phase, and now you want to fully come back or recover your IT state or environment back to where it was originally at before the incident happened. So that is the recovery phase. And then remediation is fixing everything back to normal. And lessons learned. Lessons learned is just to figure out what went wrong and not to repeat it in future. So you just uh, see that okay, the initial access happened because the server was not patched, despite there being a advisory floating in the space. So you may want to subscribe to better threat intel, work on your patch management program, work on your vulnerability management program to detect issues faster in your environment and patch issues uh, equally quickly. So that is the entire incident management life cycle end to end. You start from detection and you finally record everything in a place and make necessary adjustments in your internal processes, tools, technologies, and people, uh, primarily the skill set of people, to not let that same thing happen again. Everyone with me so far? You may have experienced this in your job, in any specific phase, or maybe you are an incident, you're part of the incident response team, so you know it end to end. But that is what incident management is, primarily end to end. Any questions on this?
Yeah, one question, Chandresh, regarding the reporting part. So you have written single point of contact for
Yes.
reporting. Sorry, I did not understand completely on that. If you could please elaborate.
Okay, so let me come to the left side in a bit, but reporting. So why do we need a POC for reporting is if 10 people are talking to 10 different people it may lead to a lot of misinformation being spread, or you know the principle of need to know. So whoever is sharing, they shouldn't be oversharing, first of all, and they shouldn't be basically saying anything which can be misleading and may have repercussions for the organizations. So say somebody who's not close to the matter may have just heard within your organization there is a say marketing team personnel. They don't know what kind of incident is going on, but they know that there is an incident happened and somebody stole the data. Now they don't know the quantum of data. They don't know what exactly has happened. They don't know whether there was actually a data uh, siphoned out of your environment, etc., etc. But if this uh, say it to a friend, and that friend works at somewhere else, it ends up leading to a lot of reputational damage, or sometimes may lead to a lot of misinformation being out there. So what ideally should be done is you should have a single point of contact to communicate with all the parties, and they should be very, very well versed of what is supposed to be shared. And typically organizations have templates for it. So if it is a regulatory authority which needs to be informed, there'll be a template for that. That this is the amount of information, that this is the kind of information that you may need to inform them about. So say initial detection, time, MTR, MTTR, or whatever it is. Uh, what kind of data was taken out, if or breached, if it was involved, etc., etc. So the reason why we should have single point of contact is to enforce the principle of need to know when you're communicating about the incident to either internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. This POC should be very, very well versed of the principle of need to know, what to share, with who to share it, and that's how you manage the communications in case of an incident.
Sure, got it. Sorry, I confused with the actual reporting of IM, incident management, and BCP. So basically, you're talking about the disaster recovery and who reports it. Got it.
Kind of, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Lokesh, right?
Chandrasekhar.
Sorry, so actually, we developed the solution. We want to get the data from 365 degrees from IAM level or infrastructure level, application level, and the backup level. So we want to see one centralized dashboard of all the incident. So what are the tool? So we want to configure in cloud. Can you explain that, Chandresh?
Isn't that already possible through your SIEM? If you have a SIEM or a SOAR,
Mhm.
say something like a Sentinel in Azure, or
Okay.
something like a Chronicle in Google, GCP.
Chronicle.
These capabilities are already there, and which is a very, very well-known technology, which is SIEM.
For example, if any sensitive information inside the backup, or if any ransomware attacking on the web application, right? That that Sentinel will support.
Okay, so the concept of SIEM is very, very simple.
Mhm.
You can monitor 100 different dashboards if you want, and if you have that kind of a hobby,
Mhm.
or you can simply take a feed from all the tools that you have. It can be simple CSPM, CNAP, your vulnerability management program, patch management, configuration management, DSPM, data security posture management, your IDP, identity protection kind of solutions, etc., etc. So there'll be n number of tools and technologies that you deploy in
Mhm.
your enterprise to secure the enterprise, to
Okay.
secure the organization. Now, I can go and monitor all those consoles and set up thresholds everywhere,
Mhm.
or I can take feeds from all those sources, plug it
Okay.
into one place, a engine which basically is able to correlate as well, and then set thresholds there. So say something like uh, MITRE attack, they maintain list of TTPs which are used by any known advanced persistent threat or any known attacker.
Mhm.
And a SIEM kind of tool can use that threat intelligence to identify that, oh, is there any kind of ingress happening at your identity layer, by the virtue of it being able to see all the logs from the IDP or identity protection system, or your authentication layers, say it is Microsoft and Azure Entra ID. It is your SIEM is able to see the logs from there as well. So it can simply correlate multiple points of information in order to figure out what kind of attack or what kind of anomaly if it is going on in your environment. So typically it should be SIEM which is doing that for you rather than you building your own tool for it. And if you are up for building a tool, maybe use Elk Suite, which is an open source stack primarily on which Splunk is based on. So Splunk is a very well-known SIEM solution, and it uses some portion of it uses Elk Suite.
Okay.
But ideally, it should be your SIEM tool and not a custom application that you build.
Okay. One more question. For example, if any vulnerabilities inside the running microservice, is there any tool to detecting the container-based vulnerabilities?
Container-based
At
vulnerabilities.
the image level, we have the tools and the
Yes.
TV or some other tools. But
Yes.
I deploy the one.
You mean
application
runtime scan kind of?
Yes. No. I deploy the one application that is a microservice and Kubernetes or AKS or EKS. So by chance, any vulnerabilities inside the container, right? So is there any tool to detecting that the particular container have the vulnerabilities?
Okay. First of all, AKS or EKS is a managed component. That's a
Yes.
PaaS offered by AKS by Azure, EKS by AWS.
Mhm.
So if you have a very, very good CNAP or CSPM tool, which is Cloud Security Posture Management or Cloud Native Application Protection Suite,
Mhm.
that should be able to tell you any misconfigurations that you may have done at the control plane of AKS or EKS.
Okay, that is a misconfiguration you're talking about. For
Run.
example, any
I'm
publicly
coming to that.
exposed
I'm coming to that. Yes.
Yeah.
Since it is a PaaS component, you may not be allowed to fiddle too much with your runtime, isn't it?
Mhm.
So you're limited by the virtue of it being a PaaS. You can focus on your image being safe and your PaaS environment being configured right.
Mhm.
As
Okay.
long as that is done, how do you think in a runtime and attack may possibly go? Because containers are inherently what is the word? Immutable.
Yeah, that is isolated environment.
Immutable as in
Immutable.
you can't
Yeah,
modify the runtime.
correct. Yeah, I understand that, Chandresh. But you're talking about we want to control the vulnerabilities in the image level or infrastructure level.
Generally.
Yeah.
Unless you're running your own VM cluster on which you're running your say Docker, and then K8s is running on top of that as an orchestrator, then in that case you can secure your VM in runtime.
Okay.
Because remember the container itself is immutable in nature.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Sandesh.
No problem. Okay. Now for each stages, I have listed down some key technologies or key processes that you can follow. So for detection, we can use something like SIEM, IDS, IPS, data leakage protection. This is your physical security portions. So while CISSP asks for this, you can these are physical security, fire detectors, and whistleblowers. Whistleblower is ideally a policy where you allow people to anonymously disclose anything unethical or wrong going on in your organization. So that is what whistleblower is. So in the for detect phase, you can use your SIEM primarily. And for physical security, it will be fire detectors, fire alarms, etc. You have physical intrusion detection systems as well. Then for people and admin related issues, it can be whistleblower policy where it can be as simple as a Microsoft form, which is protecting the without collecting the email ID and other things which keep the uh, form submitter anonymous. But that's primarily the idea. Okay. Now, sorry.
Chandesh, I have
Somebody
one
wants
more
to
question.
Yeah.
So actually, we want to collect the data from I think 4 5 sources and putting into the one central database. So that is possible. And for example, I want to get the data from IAM level on the infrastructure level and application level and that data level.
Sure.
So that use case is possible, Chandresh.
That's definitely possible. You can use something like a data lake because I'm
Data lake.
assuming that you're going to use that data for something, not just storing it.
Yeah.
So and that's why I said that you can maybe if you want to build something from scratch, go for Elk. If you're on cloud native, go for any ETL stack. So it can be your Databricks in Azure, it can be your blob storage, Databricks
Yeah,
and
actually, we are
S3
using that Azure Data Factory and
ADF. Okay.
yeah,
So
for
you
data.
anyways have Databricks access to Databricks.
Oh, yes, correct. Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, you can use that.
Oh,
Okay. Now at the respond phase, you primarily do assess the impact of what the incident was, and then figure out what kind of playbook shall be involved. So ideally, a more mature organization will have playbooks for multiple types of incidents. These are nothing but as simple as an SOP, or your SOAR is a security orchestration a tool which sits on top of scene, and you can write your playbooks there. So if X is happening, do Y is it's something like that. Now that Y can be another script altogether, or a set of multiple scripts, and I hope you get the point. So a more mature organization will have something like a SOAR with multiple playbooks loaded on it. A less mature organization may have some procedures written that if X is happening, do Y. And then your IR team is deployed. At the mitigate phase, you minimize the damage or contain the damage. So in on-prem world, the server isolation used to be the thing. In cloud, you can simply write the right NSG rules and block traffic ingress and egress. And that's what you primarily do in mitigate, and collect any snapshots if you may want to, because there can be a forensics requirement involved, etc., etc. There are also features available in Azure which allow you to natively bake in COC, which is chain of custody, and other relevant things which help the forensic team identify the issue or pinpoint the issue or do the root cause analysis very, very properly eventually. Then you have reporting. We have already discussed the single point of contact. Then you have recovery. So you return back to normal. And then you have lessons learned, which is basically maintaining a running list of all the known issues which has happened, what was done to remediate those issues, and what is the long-term strategy of the organization to not let that happen again. Now, these are the example attacks. I think I would advise anyone who wants to be more current with the kind of attacks to go visit MITRE ATT&CK. They maintain a list of TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures, followed by any APT, and using that they fingerprint everyone. So you can learn more about attacks, the possible attacks, the entire kill chain. When I say kill chain, I'm referring to the Lockheed Martin's cyber kill chain. So they give you a visual of what are the different stages involved in a successful attack, starting from initial access to gaining persistence and hands-on keyboard. So you can refer to these two sources for more information. I'll just leave it in the deck so that you have it handy. Cool. Now we have a quick question, which is, I'll read the question. You can tell me the answer and we'll proceed with that. Which of the following types of tests involve discursive exploration of existing response procedure based on a likely adverse scenario designed to determine if desired outcomes will result?
simulation test.
Anyone else?
Structured work.
Yeah, it's a tabletop exercise. If it's already an explosion, because management will sit in that. That's what I understand.
Yes. So it's primarily a tabletop exercise. Is the right answer. And move to the next one, which is logging and monitoring. Now it ties back to the same conversation that we just now had. If you want to detect something or any incident which is happening in your environment, the first thing that you should have is observability, which is basically being able to know what's going on at different IT environments of your organization. And that is achieved primarily using logging and monitoring capabilities. With proliferation of cloud, it has changed a little because in on-prem world, you used to simply create some connectors on your SIEM tool and then pointed all your servers to just, or all your solutions, IT solutions or cybersecurity solutions, to send logs to that particular connector. And then the SIEM tool simply used to pass those all the logs, used to put it in a tabular format, and you can write all the rules on top of that for correlation, for alerting, ticketing, etc., etc. With cloud, a lot of things have changed, um, primarily because of the way initially there was no guidance around secure by design or secure defaults, which CISA has later on uh, introduced, and many cloud service providers have reacted or responded to it by introducing a few services by default in the organization. But otherwise, it all comes down to what kind of log data is your cloud service provider allowing you to collect from the platform, and how are they letting you do it. So for example, if you're on Azure, and you're using Sentinel, you're primarily going to be sticking with either log analytics workspace or a data lake kind of solution, which can log analytics workspace is costlier, data lake is cheaper, but analytics workspace allows you to write real-time rules on your data, whatever you're seeing. In case of a data lake, you'll have to do you'll have to uh, go extra few hops in order to figure out what's going on and where is it going on. So these are the kind of complications which are added uh, due to cloud proliferation. Otherwise, the activities that we do is more or less the same. So we activate the logs in whatever solutions or services that we're using at both data plane and control plane. Now, data plane is nothing but where your virtual machines or any workload for that matter is running, any data storage, etc. Control plane is where your configuration for your specific individual devices is there. So we collect logs from all these, from both the layers, and as much as possible, as much data as possible, which allows you the highest fidelity in terms of observability.
Chandresh, actually, we are using Azure Sentinel.
Yeah.
I think you recommended instead of log analytics workspace, storage you recommended, right?
There are two ways I mentioned where you can store the log data. One
Okay.
is the log analytics workspace, which by default Sentinel's backplane is that only. It
Mhm.
uses that as a data store.
Okay. Which one do you
Additional,
recommend, Chandresh?
see, it all depends on how much is your organization willing to spend, because scaling the log analytics workspace can become very, very costly very, very quickly.
Okay.
So alternatively, what I have seen a few organizations do is they set up their own data lake, and it becomes then more or less on demand. So when you want to do a forensics, or when you want to do a threat hunting, or whenever you want the log data to be available on demand, you simply load it on analytics workspace and do whatever you want to do with your scene. And in such cases, organizations basically break it down to two things. One is the critical logs, or logs which add fidelity to your whole observability. What I mean by fidelity to observability is, say you have a EDR that will basically give you a very, very good coverage of all the workloads that you're running on your environment. And from a cybersecurity lens, it will be whatever logs it's generating, it is generating from a cybersecurity lens. So which helps your case of observability. So by virtue of ingesting EDR alone, you may discount the collection of individual virtual machines log, and you can store the actual virtual VM logs generated by VMs in a data lake. Keep EDR logs in your analytics workspace. So it all comes down to the cost optimization, how you deploy it.
Mhm. Okay. But if you storing the data into storage account, we can execute the queries in Gusto, right?
Yes,
That option also there, right?
you can always use KQL.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Chandra.
No problem. Okay. So when it comes to logging, you start with ensuring that every device is running the same time. On cloud, you barely need to worry about that. If you have some on-prem exposure, you need to worry about how do you set up NTP on those devices, network time protocol. Why is it important? Because all the devices must be having the same time at the same time. So for example, what I mean by that is if it is 11:35 uh, currently on my laptop, it shouldn't be the case that a server which is running my production workload is showing 10 o'clock. So my clocks should be in sync so that the correlation becomes easier. Otherwise, something which is happening there at 10 o'clock, according to the server, may be actually happening at 11:35 IST, because that's the actual time. That's why we use something called a network time protocol. We set up a time server in the organization, and then every device can simply talk to it and get its time updated. Once your is in sync, everything will make more sense. So basically, you introduce correlatability in your logs. So the very basic thing to do is have your time in sync or clocks in sync of all the workloads wherever you're getting the logs from. Otherwise, it can lead to some disparity between what time one system is seeing versus what time other server is seeing. That, and then you should be activating relevant logs which may be required by your IR plan or your, say, performance management, etc. So you should be activating the right logs, and then finally you should be keeping the logs in a way that primarily what we call these kind of storage solutions is write once, read multiple times. What it primarily allows you to do is it makes your logs immutable basically. So once you store the log somewhere, you should be confident that it is not going to get changed, or no, somebody is not going to modify it. So oftentimes what happens is, if there is an attack, the attacker, in order to not get detected, also reduce their footprint by, or remove their footprints by removing the logs in relevant archives or storages. So wherever you're storing your logs, it should be configured in a way, or you should be using the right solution which allows immutable storage of log, or which is meant for storing logs. Then you have circular logging, which is a method to save space, which is after a point in time, the system will remove the first line of the log and start rewriting the storage again. So say you have parked some 50 GB for logging. Once those 50 GB is exhausted, the system will simply start writing from the beginning again, rewriting the data basically, and you lose that data, whatever is rewritten. So ensure that you have sufficient purge schedules or sync schedules built into your environment. Not a problem in cloud, primarily a issue in on-prem kind of setups, but that is there. Then you have monitoring. So once you have logs stored somewhere, you may want to analyze the logs for something. So you have scene kind of solutions which can basically do correlation. You can set thresholds, so something like, and most of these solutions nowadays come pre-configured, use AI, etc., to do very good data analytics. What monitoring primarily aims at is being real time and being very, very comprehensive. So say there can be things like as simple as somebody trying to brute force any accounts. So somebody tries to there are an authentication system or Entra ID is generating logs like somebody has tried to there are 5 failed logon attempts in say 30 seconds, which is not humanly possible or which shouldn't be the case. So you throw an alert or you take an action that you simply lock the account for a minute, you rate limit it so that the user can only log in after 5 minutes or 10 minutes. These kind of configurations can be done in response to your monitoring. And these nowadays are very, very basic practices. So, and it all comes down to the lessons learned part. Why are these kind of things or prevention of brute force or brute force mitigating controls or policies are coming by default is because you have learned your lesson. We have seen brute force kind of attacks happening in past, and industry has learned that this is how it looks like. So they make it a baseline that now everything which sees multiple failed login attempts, consecutive failed login attempts from the same source or multiple sources for the same user account, you rate limit it or you ask for a stronger authentication mechanism. You introduce CAPTCHA, you introduce second factor authentication, etc., etc. Those kind of things we do. Now, monitoring is broader than that. It is monitoring for any kind of anomaly or incidents for that matter, and that all can be customized in or set can be set up in a SIEM solution. Then you have audit trails, so you should be maintaining an audit trail of everything, which is basically don't delete anything, append everything. That is primarily the audit. That is the concept of audit trail. Or don't modify or delete anything, append everything. So any new logs get appended, any old logs doesn't get deleted or overwritten or modified. That is what audit trails part is. Then you have log management. Again, it comes down to how long is it required for you to retain the logs. Accordingly, you'll size your storage requirements, etc., because it can become pretty very, very large, very, very quickly. So primarily that's what you do in log management activities. You figure out what is your storage requirement. Accordingly, you'll have to secure budgets. You'll have to figure out what kind of technology or solution available with your vendor allows that kind of capability at the kind of agility that you want your monitoring process to be at. Then you have digital watermarking or file hashes. That is basically to ensure that you have some level of confidence on your logs being immutable or logs not being modified. So you keep the hashes so that you can verify if something has been altered or not. You can put digital watermarks so you understand that the logs belongs to you. If there is a breach, you can detect it, etc., by virtue of that watermark being there. And watermark is in this case is nothing but metadata. So file properties, you write some attributes there, and that's your watermarking, digital watermarking. Then you have automated incident response. I've kind of covered it in the last slide. Primarily, you used to have SOPs of if X happens, do Y, and people used to do it. With introduction of SOAR, you can basically automate your response. That is what it stands for, security, orchestration, and automated response. There you can define playbooks and runbooks. So the same SOPs where if X happens, do Y, you can define it now on a SOAR platform, which can take those actions accordingly. So say if somebody has exploited your Node.js, block traffic to that server, isolate that traffic, is that kind of rules is what you can write. Or if a web server is used to gain initial access, and it can use, again, MITRE ATT&CK TTPs for that to detect it. And then it can either block traffic from that specific region, IP, or that particular source. It can use the source fingerprinting for that. So you can do all those things with a SOAR solution with the right playbooks and runbooks. Then you have the TI, which is threat intelligence. Your systems are not inherently smart. So you introduce threat intelligence. Yeah, Raju, please go ahead.
Yeah, does SOAR have any dependencies to act, or it acts independently of?
It all depends on how much risk is the organization willing to take, because it can lead to availability issues, isn't it? So if there's a rule in the SOAR which says that if your web server is under attack, or if you feel like it is under attack, block all traffic on port 80 or 443, whatever it is. And then in that case, it can lead to unavailability. So it all, whether you want it to be, whether you want a human in the loop or not, which is so taking decisions on its own or taking actions on its own or not, depends on what is the organization's policy, what kind of asset is it. So if it is an internal service, maybe the impact will be very, very low, and you want to, your organization is up for that kind of an impact just to trial things out and roll out it in, say, public facing services. But that's entirely an organization's decision.
So it doesn't have a direct dependency on SIEM tool, right?
So most of the SOARs are now SIEM plus SOAR. But
Okay.
if there is an orchestration layer that you may have homegrown or written or you built on your own, that may take input from SIEM. Because ultimately SIEM is the engine which is doing the correlation, etc. SOAR is an orchestration layer which is taking actions basis whatever SIEM is telling it to do.
Right. I mean, with the AI, so I was thinking if that is something which SOAR inherently also triggers and has doesn't and can act independently, irrespective of what outputs it get from, the aggregations, etc. from SIEM. That's what I was thinking.
So if you refer to the NIST AI RMF, which is the AI risk management framework, or EU AI Act, so far what I've seen is regulatory bodies and any framework for that matter, NIST and EU, they focus heavily on human being in the loop whenever you're using AI. So I don't think there'll be any SOAR platform which allows the AI to act independently. And when I say AI, I'm specifically meaning the type of AI that we are seeing now, which is generative AI, or basically that. Because AI is a very, very broad term. It can be simple if else rules also, which is AI. That will be very simplistic.
Yeah, my thinking was in terms of because of that automatic incident response, and that's a great advantage if you consider that, So I was thinking maybe that is inherent considering AI. I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. So since the SOAR has a capability of actually impacting a production environment, the ideal way to do it is maybe just try it out in your internal services first, or non-production or lower environments first. Let see how AI behaves. Maybe put it in a botnet, and sorry, maybe put it in a honeypot and figure out, or put it in a sandbox, try to see how it reacts, and then use it in the production. But yeah, uh, I have not seen organizations implement anything beyond simple policy changes like switch from detect to alert. So say an organization is using is rolling out EDR, they will have some phased plan for it, that for first 2 quarters we are only going to detect everything. Next 2 quarters we are only going to alert on everything, and then maybe further 2 quarters we are going to start enforcing uh, correct or act in a phased wise manner. So you can follow a similar approach there.
Right. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, that's it on that slide. There's a quiz again. So which one of the following refers to the expected amount of time it will take to get a device fixed and back into production after its failure? Any wild guesses?
Entity or
And what is that?
is the mean time to recovery first to detect the
Yes, that's the correct answer. It's mean time to recovery. Okay, then the next topic is around backup. And tape rotation, you can technically ignore that if your organization is not using tape rotation, but primarily it caters to the fact that you can have a schema built into your environment where you can efficiently store everything and still use your tapes for the longest amount of time possible, which typically is a week, a single tape for a single week, that kind of thing, and then you overwrite the data. Okay. So backups, why is it important? With the rise of ransomware attacks, we all know now how important backing up the data is, unless you are very, very keen on paying ransom to somebody. How it helps is if you have your data configuration, etc., backed up, it helps incident responders to quickly isolate the system, reimage the system, and restore everything from backups and resume operations very, very quickly. So a backup is nothing but a replica of or a copy of the data or configuration that you have in your environment. Now, why I say data and configuration separately? Because because again, if you remember the control plane and the data plane that I mentioned in the previous slides. So anything which is in your workload or in your storage, primarily it will be data that it is either storing, processing, or collecting. Storing, using, or processing. Sorry, storing, using, or processing, using or collecting. Okay, collect, use, and process. Let's see. Collect, use, and store. So if you're collecting, using, or storing anything, any data, that is what your data backup is. That is what will be part of your data backup. And configuration backup is any configuration that you have done on your workload. So maybe the kind of CPU, the kind of CPU that you may be running, your Terraform configuration files, etc. All those things are configuration. So your how are you going to size a virtual machine? What number of cores, what amount of memory, which disk to attach, etc., etc. Those kind of things will be part of your configuration backup. So we should have some strategy to back up both the things, configuration and data. Now, there are multiple types of backup here. It can be mirror, which is a full replica. Doesn't require any decompression or any modification. You can simply restore from a snapshot. So that is the mirror piece. Then you have full backups, which is basically a compressed version of it. Again, this is just a definition. You don't need to worry about it much. So this is the order of backup schemas in decreasing order of storage requirement. So the mirror backup is a full snapshot every time. A full backup is a compressed version of mirror. A differential backup is basically whatever was backed up last time, everything excluding whatever was backed up last time. And incremental is just the delta of last time till today. Now, verification of backup is important because you're placing your bets on the backup to help you with restoring in case of any incident. So you may want to test the backups frequently, periodically, to be sure of to be sure of in case of an incident, you can recover from those backups or you can restore from those backups. And you can do that via either generating checksums or most of the backup solutions or cloud native services now have it built in. So generally, you don't need to worry about it. But things like your Dell Networker, etc., which are the well-known backup tools otherwise, allow you to actually configure those things. And then you can actually deploy it in a sandbox and test it out, whether your backup is restoring or not. So verification of backup is important. Then you have tape rotation. So many organizations, in particular, which maintain their own uh, data centers. So your cloud service provider may be taking backups on tape. Anyone who is maintaining their private cloud, they may require to do a tape backup. And that's primarily because tapes are cheap and are their longevity is very high. And you can rewrite it in order to be sure. And movement is easier, etc., etc. The technology is inherently shockproof, and it's a very dense medium, meaning in a smaller size you can store a lot of data compared to a hard disk, etc. Because a hard disk is not very shockproof. It cannot. It's not as dense as a tape, uh, and you cannot use a solid state drive because it will not be very cost effective. So tapes are primarily used for backup there is where you're responsible for maintaining your own infrastructure. And then you'll have to rotate the tapes in order to efficiently use it. And you have multiple approaches of doing that. Most of the people follow the grandfather father son approach, where the grandfather will be a full backup in the beginning of say a month. Or if you look at this image, this is actually depicting the grandfather father son approach. Grandfather is a monthly backup that you take, say at the end of last day of the month, or say XYZ last. Okay, so grandfather is a full backup that you take any day of the month, in the beginning and whatever. You fix that. Then fathers are again a full backup in the beginning of the week, and then subsequently you can simply take incremental backups on another tape. So you're using basically 3 tapes to do the whole thing. And every time you take so there's one tape which is being used for full backup on a weekly basis, which is the father piece. There's another tape which is being used to take a full backup on a monthly basis. That's your grandfather. And then there is another tape which is being used to take incremental backup on daily basis. So say for example, if there's an outage, or you get a ransomware attack on 4th of the day, you need just the father and the 3 sons here in order to recover fully till the 4th of that or till that Thursday of that month. So primarily that's the idea. Now you have a recovery point objective and time objective. RTO is basically the amount of time that you can safely take in order to recover fully your operations. And RPO is recovery point objective, which basically dictates how much amount of data in terms of time can you lose. So say it's a bank, they may not be okay to lose even a second worth of data, because they are getting a lot of transactions simultaneously every second. Say they're processing some tens of thousands of transactions every second. So even if you lose the data worth 1 second, you're losing some 10,000 transactions worth of data, and you'll have to then manually reconcile it if that risk ever materializes. So your RPO basically dictates your backup strategy, your resilience strategy on the data side of things. So how quickly can you recover the data? What kind of resiliency have you built in your data storage, etc., etc. Verification we have already covered, so we should be good. Any questions on this?
Yeah, I have a question, Chandesh. Thanks. Just out of curiosity, we have been hearing about tape backups, and we have been hearing about GFS for quite a long time. And with this, and it was very costly at those days. Now, both in terms of cost effectiveness and at the same time, with the amount of data that we have now, including streaming data and data, the modern data, if you want to call, the rate at which it is occurring. What is the most efficient and effective, according to you, I mean, used by organizations nowadays? Which is most, and should any attack occur, what is that they look for immediately in terms of time and for a quick recovery?
Okay, it again depends on a organization. It changes from organization to organization depending upon what kind of industry they are operating in. For example, if it is a bank, they maintain a lot of redundancy. They'll have a data center, they'll have a disaster recovery site, they may have a near site as well. So, which is a real-time replica of your data center, which is extremely costly to maintain because all three sites are hot sites. So, and they do it because they are very, very tightly regulated. If you're not operating in an organization which is not tightly regulated, then you should have some sort of a risk assessment that you may have done, which or business impact analysis that you may have done, which tells you what is the RTO and RP requirement of different services. Now, depending upon your service criticality and your disaster recovery requirements, which are basically your RTO and RP requirements, primarily RPO, which will decide your backup strategy. You'll pick what is the most cost effective method because you primarily alluded to the cost effectiveness of the solution. So it can be, and the second factor here will be what kind of infrastructure are you running on? So are these all virtual machines? Was it a lift and shift kind of movement to cloud? Are you using all cloud native? If it is cloud native, it may be geo-redundant already. So you may not even need to back it up. It is as good as a near site all the time. If it is a virtual machine, you can use things like Networker, etc., which come with their own hardened storage environment where they back it up, which ensures immutability, chain of custody, etc., etc. So I hope that answers it, but there's no one size fits all to what your question was.
Right, right. No, I just generally, this was a general question in terms of, as moving from that stage to where we are today. At some time, it was definitely considered, what was, there was a dependency on the organizations of how it would take that solution or the strategy, the backup strategy. But now things have changed, and data being very critical, depending upon the organization's operations. I was thinking that they have a standard or pretty much give priority to that, so that there'll be a more efficient and effective way of, and so they can list down that this is the best and that is what everyone opts for. So I was thinking that way, not coming from that area, so I was curious in that regard. Yeah, that helps. Not a problem. Thanks. But then, mostly for organizations which have dependencies on the the cloud and then the respective. So how does that work in terms of how does that protocol work in terms of how they get back in recovery and
Okay.
yeah,
So if it is cloud native, the entire workload is cloud native,
yeah,
then you most probably are using PaaS services, and there you have option to pick uh, an LRS or GRS kind of service. GRS is global redundancy, LRS is local redundancy, and depending upon what type of deployment you pick, it will either replicate the data across different availability zones or different regions. I hope you're familiar with regions and zones.
right, right, yes,
So in that kind of a setup, typically, if it is a very, very low risk service and is not very critical, organizations do not even go for a backup because it is already a commitment by your cloud service provider that it is geo redundant. So even if an entire geography or an entire continent goes down, you'll still have your data available.
okay.
And if it is a critical service, you can always keep it. The simplest way to write a Lambda function and move it to S3 bucket.
Okay.
Or if you want a long-term storage kind of solution, you have a lot of streaming data. Maybe once it is done, it will go to a long-term or short-term database where so streaming is it will contain very, very less. Uh, it will contain so if you look at the data that it will contain in terms of time, it will be containing very, very less amount of data in terms of time. So it may contain only 1 hour worth of data or a minute worth of data, depending upon the application again. And then you may need it for, say, another day or two for further analysis, maybe. You can put it in an RDS or a relational database for that matter, or a NoSQL if it is a multimedia. And then maybe you can move it to a long-term storage, which is Glacier, or you can use S3, whatever makes most sense. So it depends on it. It depends again a lot on what kind of application are you dealing with.
Right. So another quick follow-up question also, is there any standard that they need to follow as regard this is concerned, particularly compliance towards retention, archival, and availability of data and these things? Is it regulated in any way by any standard, or as regards you know uh, the back?
Again, regulations are a ton. There are a lot of regulations. So
Right.
something as simple as EU-CRA that asks you to, I think, from if I remember it correctly, they ask you to retain all the product documentation for up to 10 years, and which is very, very long for a product documentation. But regulations can be bizarre like that. So organizations, depending upon which domain are they operating at, which sector are they operating at, what regulations are applicable to them, etc., they'll come down to defining the RTO-RP requirement for all their services, because not all services may require the same amount of uh, resilience or backup frequency.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, that's all for me. Thank you.
Cool. Guys, I have a hard stop at 12. I had a hard stop at 12. I'll have to go out now. So I'll just hand over to Rinderjeet. And it was nice interacting with you guys. Thanks a lot for your time. Happy weekend. Take care.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Chandresh.
Chandresh. Thank you, Chandresh.
Thank you, guys. Over to you.
Hey, Harinder, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I was in mute. Okay, hello everyone. So yeah, that was a good session by Chandresh, and there are lots of discussion going on, and they were enlightening as well. But let us focus on the topics that we are going to discuss, because we have a limitation of time, and maybe although the discussions are fruitful, I will advise to stick to the topics and go with the flow, right? Rather than asking your doubts related to your organization, or how you have deployed, how the deployment is in your organization with specifics to certain technologies, right? That is my request to all. And with that, I will start my session. Let me share my screen. Let me know once it's visible.
Yeah, it's showing.
Showing? Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, great. So yeah, we are going through the domains of 7 security operations. Am I audible? All clear? No audio issues?
Yes, very clear.
Okay. So just about myself, I'm Harinderjit Singh Walia. I am a veteran from Indian Air Force. I retired in 2018 and joined ForcePoint. I'm looking after global enterprise technical support team in ForcePoint. I'm from a VAPT and audit background. Yeah, and incident response and digital forensics are also some of the fields that I've worked into. Before I start, disclaimer: the content and information shared in this webinar is educational only purpose. They are based on publicly available knowledge. No information presented in the session is related or derived from a present or past organizations. No monetary compensation has been received or requested for conducting this webinar. Basically, this is for the community. Participants are advised to verify and adapt content. So the meaning is, don't only rely on this webinar. You have to read a lot uh, for clearing your CISSP exam. And we are just highlighting some of the important points in this webinars. Hope that's clear. So as CISSP says, it's a mile wide and an inch deep. That means that let us stick to the topics, in the sense you need to know the basics of every topic. Okay, all the terms that is mentioned in the CISSP. No need of diving too deep into each, because then it will be an impossible task. You have 8 domains with lots of technology, lots of terms, and if you start drilling into each of it, you will never be able to complete the course itself. Leave away the examination part, right? So CISSP has a way of teaching you about the concepts, and it enables you to be a security consultant, or maybe a management view that can manage a team of cybersecurity professionals for the company's goal. Okay. So topic on foundational security concepts. First topic that I would say is need to know. Uh, I hope everybody is aware of it. What is need to know? Any doubts here? What's need to know? Okay, so just to give you a clarity, there's a difference between need to know and least privilege. So need to know is someone should not have access to information unless their job description requires it. Okay, and least privilege is no employee should have access to authority over any system or data unless it is necessary for an employee to perform their job function. So sometimes in my CISSP day, I used to get confused. What's the difference between need to know and least privilege? So just to give you an example, when you are talking about need to know, suppose you have a level 3, 2 of the employees in your company has level 3 access. Okay, and but both are them are working on different projects. Having same type of access does not mean that both of them should be about know about each other's projects, right? So that is what is mentioned by need to know. Even though you have the same privileges or access, you will be only get the information depending on your job role and the project that you are working on, uh, nothing more than that. And least privilege is something different. It is mostly RBAC system. When I say RBAC, it is role-based access control. That means uh, whenever you are given an access, uh, you will be given the least amount of access to the information that is available. And depending on your need, when the organization deems fit that more information can be given to you, they will allow the other informations, right? So yeah, so least privilege based on roles and responsibilities, need to know task specific or context specific necessity. Any doubts here? Okay, great. Next is separation of duties. What is separation of duties? Like no individual person can complete an entire trusted action. The- So for example, let's say if we have logistics section wherein the orders are placed, and then we have account team which approves the payment, right? So both of this operation cannot be done by a single person, because in that case there is always a possibility of fraud. A person who is approving the orders and the person who is paying for the orders should not be the same person. Then, if this is the scenario, there are chances that false orders can be placed and payments can be done for that false orders as well, which will lead to frauds, right? To avoid that, we always go with separation of duties. But when we are implementing separation of duties, it does degrade operational efficiency in the sense that uh, if a one person can do both the jobs, but we are not utilizing him, and if that person is given both the jobs, then operational efficiency will uh, increase, right? In the sense there will be less time delay for a particular process. But yeah, that is where we have to balance it out in the sense we cannot expect operation efficiency over cybersecurity or any security function, right? Job rotation, all employees change roles and tasks on a singular basis. That is also a practice that is there. Why it is there? Suppose in bank there are multiple people working. One is working in the teller as a cashier. The other one may be managing some other process. So when we say job rotation, that means after 6 months, the cashier may be doing some other job, and the other person who is working in a bank may take the role of the cashier. Just it just give an opportunity to audit the previous person's work, and also to find out if any flaws or wrongdoings were done in any by any of the employees. Okay, so that is a good way of uncovering any wrongdoings. Any doubts on this slide? Moving ahead.
Nothing.
Yeah, I did hear a question.
Sorry, no. I said nothing. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Then comes the privileged account management, permissions beyond normal users such as managers and administrators. So when you are giving a extended permission or more permission to a particular account, right, then you have to be more careful with that account, in the sense you have to do more extensive and detailed logging for that account, so that suppose the credentials are missed and being used by someone else, you can detect it. Okay, or the person himself is an insider threat. Okay, he is doing some malicious work for the company. That logging and extensive logging will give you his actions, right? So that is there. More advanced access control. So when you are giving more advanced access control to a person, then you need to monitor his movements as well. Okay, it is better when a senior management wants a particular access, which is very advanced in nature, right? Which overcomes multiple checks. Then that access should be given for a temporary basis till the time it is needed. It should not be given for a permanent nature. Okay, that is there. Then deeper trust verification than regular users. When you are giving access, more access to a person or privileged access to a person, then background verification is very, very needed for before giving that access, right? And that needs to be done. Greater audit privilege accounts. So every time when an audit happens, so the focus should be more on these privilege accounts, because anyways the other users don't have the access to do much harm, but with a privileged account they have lots of access. So a strict audit should be done to find out if there is any wrongdoings happening by intent or by mistake. Okay, any doubts here? Okay, great. Then comes service level agreements. What is a service level agreement? It's codified specific performance elements with discrete object metrics required for fulfillment. So here customer knows what to expect and providers knows what to deliver, right? If the provider is not delivering as per the contract mentioned, right? The SLAs mentioned in the contract, obviously he will be eligible for a penalty as decided, right? Or maybe he can land up in a court as well. And same, if you have not mentioned your expectation as a customer on the contract, then you can't claim the provider to deliver it. So whatever is your expectation and what you want from the provider, that should be clearly mentioned on the contract that you have with the vendor. Enforcement includes financial penalty reward mandated by the contract. Any doubts here? Okay. Topic 2, media management. What is a media? Media is any object that contains data. So when we are talking about media management, there are multiple controls that can be implemented. They can be divided into 3 portions, that is technical and logical. Second one is physical, and third one is administrative. So when you talk about technical and logical controls, first thing that should be done on a media is encryption. So why encryption is preferred is because here, even if the media gets theft, right, or it is missed, the encryption will not allow the data to be public. Okay, if you have encrypted the data, even if the media is lost, uh, nothing can harm the organization. It is mostly recommended for company issued mobiles, or let's say if the company is using some kind of external drive for backups, or let's say if the company is using pen drives. So there are lots of softwares available that can do the encryption part. Even the laptops nowadays are having the provision wherein the whole hard disk is encrypted. Volume level encryption is there, uh, which is given by most of the operating systems. So that is the first thing that your company should look into. Second one is strong access controls. Access to media. Let's say there is one room where all the information. When I'm talking about media, I'm just not mentioning the digital media. Uh, it can be your ledger books. It can be papers, right? Everything comes into picture. Now, suppose there's a room which has lots of company-related critical information stored in digital form or vice versa, then that room access should be controlled. It should not be that it's in the end of the corridor and unlocked, right? Anybody can go there, right? Which is not having a CCTV camera or no access control, no locks, nothing, right? So that should not be there. That company has to look into. Then tracking mechanism. Media will notify rightful owner. Nowadays, lots of softwares have come which can be incorporated, especially in mobile phones. So even if the mobile phone is lost, the media itself can send a message back where actually it is, and it also gives you capability of remote erasing. That is also one thing that can help you technically. Then comes digital watermarks and signature can be used to determine unauthorized use, and also it helps in proprietary informations. So suppose I'm just giving you an example. When I was doing my OSCP, so the book that they gave me, a PDF book that had my name imprinted in digital watermarks. That means that even though if I want to share it with some of my friends, I can't do it because then my certification can be revoked if it is found, and I can be held liable, and maybe I can be challenged in the court as well, right? So those kind of uh, technical controls are there that can be implemented for safeguarding your media. Then we have physical controls, restriction of physical access. I don't need to explain it. So anywhere there is if you have a server room, obviously you will not leave it open. There should be a restriction there, right? Technical physical controls should also be there. Search personal metadata. So when you know you are entering a data center, there are physical guards who may check you or use metal detectors to even to check you. Okay, so those kind of physical controls should be there. Device container, which destroys the media if attempted to be removed. There are multiple high-end devices are there, storage devices, wherein you store your media, but if somebody is forcefully trying to use it without the proper log or the sequence, uh, there are it can be destroyed. The media itself will be destroyed. So those kind of devices are attached with the device itself. Media disposal in a secure manner. This is a very, very important point. Everybody knows in a company, lots of data is being created every day, right? So the latest data protection um, little regulations like GDPR and all, even if our India DPDPO, that talks about media disposal, even data disposal as well, right? Whatever information is there, there's a life cycle for it, and at the end of the life cycle, it has to be disposed in a secure manner. If you are not disposing it and just leaving it there, or just keeping it unattended, that may result in data leakage. The recent incident, I think, is from Oracle, which I read in newspapers, right? Anybody aware about the Oracle incident? Anyone? No?
No.
Yeah. So there is a news that came out that there is some information data leak from Oracle systems. Okay, but then Oracle themselves get a clarity that no, it was not the latest information. It was something very old, which was kept for disposal, and some usernames got compromised from there. So those kind of things has to be avoided, right? So you should have, your company should have a very robust disposal mechanism for and a secure disposal mechanism for any of the media. Now, administrative controls, when we are talking about administrative control, it's basically policy and procedures that we are talking about, or SOPs that has been developed. As I told you, when you talk about robust data or media disposal in a secure way, you should have a proper policy and procedures in place that needs to be followed. Control process for purchase, acquisition, and deployment. When you are purchasing some media or acquisition of some media or deploying some media somewhere which will have some data, so you have that activity has to be controlled. Not everyone should be involved in that, right? And whatever you are doing has to be documented properly. Continuous monitoring and audit procedure. Obviously, if there is some loophole in your systems, only a audit can bring it out. So that is an important process in the whole. Group. Any doubts here in media management? Okay, great. Record retention policy. Evaluate legal and regulatory requirement, litigation obligation, and business needs. Similar discussion was going on in my in the earlier session. So depending on your company, what kind of business it is doing, the company needs to meet certain regulatory requirements, litigation and obligations that company has to look into. And depending on that, you have to have a policy, internal policy formulated for record retention, and that needs to be there. Classify assets and records. Obviously, classification will give you enough information how that information needs to be saved in the whole life cycle of the data. Got my point? If it is a confidential information or a secret information, or uh, it is a company only information, or it is a public information, all the information classifications have a set of rules that your company has decided. The company needs to decide if it is not there. So they will be stored and used differently. So only after you classify an asset or a record or a media properly, then that goes into that system. Determine retention periods and defensible restriction procedures. I have covered this already. Draft asset retention policy. If your company does not have it, it's a good time to have it. Provide training, awareness, and education to support policy. Obviously, if you have made a policy and your users are not aware of it, you have to take awareness sessions and inform them about it. Audit retention and restriction policy and procedures. Audit is always required to see if whatever policy and framework that you have formulated, it is being followed in the true spirit. Periodically review policy and procedures. That's true, because as the technology changes, today, just for example, right? Can anyone give me any example why it is needed? Anyone? Periodically review policy and procedures, why it is required in regards to retention policy? Any ideas? Okay, so let me give you an example. So the data is always stored in some medium, right? And we are living in a world where every day some new technology comes in, right? In the older days, it was tape drives. Now we have then we had hard disk, right? Magnetic drives, and now we are in the era of SSDs, right? Now each uh, disposal policy for each kind of device is different, right? So in that way, if you don't review your policy and procedures, maybe those policy and procedure will not meet the latest implementation, technology implementation in your company, right? And that will not give you the benefit. So periodically review and policy and procedures is very much needed. Then document policy implementation procedures, training, awareness, education, and audit results that we have already discussed. Any doubts here in the slide? Okay. Now we will come to evidence collection and handling. This is a very important subject. Uh, and I have put some extra slides also because I had worked on similar instances. So yeah, bear with me on that, just to give you more information on that. So when you talk about evidence handling, certainly we are talking about digital forensics, right? Because the need of digital forensics is when you have an incident in your organization and you are looking to go to the court, or maybe there is a regulatory requirement that you have to report it and do a full root cause analysis for it. So anywhere an incident happens, the first responder is the person who is trained to collect the evidences. So you, in your organization, you should have in your person who is earmarked, trained to work as a first responder. Okay, the roles and responsibility of first responder is to collect all the evidences which can be later going for a forensic investigation or and can be presented in the court. So the role, and this is a very important responsibility, because if your evidence is not collected properly, okay, tomorrow it may not be logical, or it may not support in the court of law, right? So this role is very, very important. So what are the basics in digital evidence seizure? Never try to do any forensics analysis locally. We never do any analysis on the evidence itself. Okay, never load any forensics tool in the evidence, never install any software in the evidence. What happens is we have seen that in a company, maybe in there are many people who are aware about particular tools, right? Now suppose there is a data leak, or maybe a hacking took place on a particular system. uh, if you are not trained, you will start loading lots of software in it, find out more information about it, because initially you would like to give more information to your management, and that is what exactly is not to be done, because in that case you are tampering the evidence and it will never be allowed in any court of law. Am I clear with that? Any doubts here? Okay, great. At the time of search, the place where the computer is stored or kept is to be photographed in such a manner that all the connections of wires, including power network are captured in such photographs. Why it is more important? Why it is needed? Any idea? Anyone? Let's say there is a insider threat, okay, and that stole some information from a laptop, or let's say from a desktop, right? Now the first line says you should photograph it properly, okay, with all the accessories which is positioned as it is, right? It is important because, let's say, with the position of the mouse where it is kept, okay, you can find out if the person was a left-handed person or a right-handed person. Am I correct? Correct. So that is why the photograph is very photography of the place where the incident had happened is very important, right? How the positions of the accessories and the whole equipment is. The front and back of the computer and or laptop were connected to all the peripherals to be taken. Why it is needed? Because tomorrow, if someone says no, it was not me, somebody changed my hard disk, okay, then we need to have a photographic evidence showing that no, there was already tag lock was intact on that particular system, right? A diagram should be prepared showing the manner which the computer and laptop is connected. Obviously, this helps. If the computer or laptop is in the power off mode, the same should not be powered on. Why this line is important? Any idea? Anybody?
The cache may get destroyed, or the last whenever the power is on. I believe the cache is main, and the temp files which is present over there also get destroyed or maybe deleted.
Yeah, you are on the right path, but here the system is off, so there is no cache as of now. What happens is when your system is on and the operating system boots, lots of files are accessed, and the time of access of those files change, right? So that is why, and that amounts to tampering as well, right? So that is why it is not advised to switch on the system if it is off. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Yeah. If the computer is powered on and the screen is blank, the mouse could be moved as it, and when the image appears on the screen, the photograph of the screen to be taken. Why it is required? If the screen is power, if the computer is powered on, the screen is blank. That means it has gone to a sleep state, right? Or maybe there is a screensaver. So the advice is to move the mouse a little and take the screenshot. No, sorry, the photograph of the screen. This is required because just to see the time that is there in the taskbar, right? Sometimes it helps to correlate. But my point? And what's happening in the desktop? Yeah. The other thing is, if the computer is powered on, the investigation officer should not power off the computer. Okay. Why it is said? I think the earlier answer completes it, right? Because when the system is on, there are lots of things going on in that system, particularly in the RAM. And if the system is on, it is advised not to switch off the system because then the investigators with their specific tools, write blockers tools, can take a RAM dump of the system. RAM dump is nothing but the whatever is there information in the RAM that can be downloaded by these specific tools. Okay. And also the network state and everything is very important for investigation. So those kind of information will be lost if somebody switches off the laptop or a system. Now the question is, suppose the investigation may take after 10 days or something, the authority or the first responder will come. He's not locally available. So it is advisable to keep the system on for so many days. Or let's say there is a hacking incident going on wherein computer is being used by the hackers. Uh, as per the forensic guidelines, we are not to do anything with that system. So do you think we'll keep the system as it is? Or else what can be done in such situations? Any ideas?
Immediately make a copy of it if it's possible.
Yeah. But should we keep the system on?
Um, Very strange, but not possible. I think if it is a desktop, obviously, if you want to take it from one place to another place, that is not feasible. I think so.
See, in case of incidents like this, where the hacker is actively hacking one of the system that you came aware of,
Now, then
first,
it has to be first. It has to be segregated. Means move it from the actual environment,
absolutely. So you have to
isolated.
contain the attack,
Content
right?
attack. Correct.
So best thing for that is if the system is up, uh, hibernate it, right? There is option of hibernation. You can do that, right? Because that preserves the RAM and every state in the system. Okay, and maybe you can take out the physical network, right? In the sense the physical cable from the desktop, or in case of Wi-Fi, you can just block or stop the Wi-Fi. Got my point?
Sure.
Disable the Wi-Fi card. Okay, because containment has to be there for any incident, right? I cannot keep a system which is actively being hacked just because I want to do a digital. I have to present a digital evidence. Got my point? So that is there. Uh, the MAC address also needs to be identified and secure. That is important. In an unlikely event of forensic examiner not available, then unplug the computer pack and computer and wires and separate Faraday covers after leveling them. Why we are telling you here to unplug and not telling you to just shut down properly? Any ideas? Sleeping? Everyone sleeping?
If we unplug it from the network, we will be isolating that system. But if we keep that in the power on way, so that all those evidences will still be intact.
Yeah, but here we are talking about unplugging the computer pack. That means taking out the power cable. So my question is why we are going for taking out the power plug rather than shutting down properly.
No, if we shut down properly, then all those cached files and everything will get removed. But if it is an abrupt shutdown, and when we boots up, so that all those cached content will still come back. Uh,
Absolutely, absolutely. So what happens is during the working of any operating system, there are lots of swap space being used in the hard disk, right? I agree that if you switch off the system, you don't find anything from the RAM, but there are still some artifacts which is available in the hard disk in the swap space, right? So that is why it is told here in the event when a system has to be powered off, in that scenario, just take out the power cable rather than shutting it down, because shutting it down will remove the swaps information. Whereas when you take out the power plug, that it's a system could not do anything. So those kind of data is still available in the swap spaces in the hard disk. Clear? Okay. Okay. Now the other thing is boot the computer without hard drives. Though, so all this information now, whatever I am saying, will be done by the first responder or anyone having the legal authority. They will document it as well, right? So during the seizure part, the hard disk needs to be taken out, and then the computer should be booted without a hard disk. Why it is? Because to record the BIOS time, right? Sometimes what happens, why it is required? Anyone, any idea? No
To,
ideas?
to understand when was the attack happened, all those things would be there, like timings, especially.
Yeah, that is one part, but the why it is being done is because sometimes what happens, the BIOS time is different. Okay, maybe there's a battery in the BIOS, right? And that battery is left the charge, it is discharged, right? So system will always boot with some days in 1970 or something, right? And it will never correlate with the hard disk time, because in hard disk also whatever time you will get for all the files will not match the actual time, correct? So that is why we, to rule out any situation on that part, any doubts on that part, it is said that remove the hard disk and then boot the system just to see what is the time that is being mentioned in the BIOS, because system when boots up it takes the time from the BIOS, and if the BIOS is having wrong information, then we have to cater for that while investigating as well. Got my point? You have to correlate basically.
Sure.
Compare the time with the original time. This is about the confusion of time, because please understand, time is very, very important while investigating anything and for correlating. Record the position of the peripherals. I have already explained. Unplug the power cable. Yeah. In case of a laptop, if the removal of the power cord does not shut down the laptop, to locate and remove the battery. Obviously, I explained you why. If the laptop battery cannot be removed, then shut down the laptop and pack it in a Faraday bag and block communication. Because laptops also have a ability. So what is a Faraday bag? Faraday bag is something which stops any interference from and disconnects the network and anything, any magnetic interference, anything that cannot happen if you are putting any item in a Faraday bag. So laptop nowadays can also be remotely accessed, so we have to stop that. And also we don't want the evidence to be destroyed by any magnetic field or anything. That is why it is always recommended to put the evidences in a special Faraday bags, right? That is the information. Extra evidence, uh, if the setup is a cyber battery, take the log register. Okay, if CCTV is available, take the camera feed. If the user management software is installed for login, take the logs. Formatting policy, record of concern section to be collected. Hardware replacement record, if available, should be collected. Any doubts in this? Any queries? I think these are very simple here. Volatile evidence, if the PC is on condition, PC should be kept on if permitted till the time the forensic investigator does not dump the volatile memory. We are focusing on the volatile memory because that is the actual working what is getting done, and volatile memory is nothing but the RAM of the system, right? Whatever I do, it is running information is there in the RAM. So RAM is very, very important in case of digital acquisitions and investigations. After taking the memory dump, take the network cable out. It is best to take the power cable out for putting the PC, as I have informed you, right? Now, in digital evidence collection and digital forensics, till the time you present the information to the court, okay, and after that also, chain of custody is one of the things that is very, very important. What is chain of custody? When you are collecting the evidence, okay, during the seizure, how you seize that evidence, and then how you are keeping that evidence intact, okay, how you are saving the in evidence, how you are transporting the evidence, okay, and how the digital forensics is done on that evidence. Everything needs to be tabulated, right? Or it should be a record should be maintained of that, and that exactly is what chain of custody refers. Suppose you have collected a evidence and you have transported it, okay, and then you start digital forensics, but you are not maintaining any record of what happened at what time, right? In the sense how the evidence has been collected. So that kind of evidence never stands in the court of law, because anybody can claim that this has been tampered, right? So chain of custody is very, very important document that has to be there for any evidence that is being collected. So what is chain of evidence? Ensures evidence has not been tampered or altered, maintains accountability, suppose legal admissibility, and then incident response procedures. And it is also mentioned in ISO IC 27073 and NIST publication 886. Okay. You may expect some question from chain of custody. This is very, very important when you are talking about digital forensics. Now, the fourth topic, digital forensic tools, tactics, and procedures. So what is the digital forensics? It's a branch of forensic science encompassing the recovery and investigation of material found in digital devices, often a relation with computer crime, right? So steps of digital forensics. First is the collection step, then examination, analysis, and reporting. In the first step, the evidences are media. Second steps, it becomes to logical data, and then from logical data we pull out the information that is needed and then present it in the court as a form of evidence, right? Digital forensics: document everything, avoid unrecorded, unintended modification. Collection is a sensitive process. As I told you, the collection of evidence determines if that particular evidence in future can be presented in the court of law or not. If you have not done that properly, even though you have kept it properly and everything, if the during the collection process you have not followed the proper process, then and don't have a chain of custody on those kind of information, it can never be taken in the court of law. And that is why we say that the collection of the information and the digital forensic process is not for everyone. Only the trained people needs to do it, right? Points to remember: use a write blocker and clone the hard disk. So investigation is never done on the, let's say you have collected a laptop or a hard or a desktop. So any investigation will never be done on that particular hard disk or SSD, right? It has to be copied on a similar device with the help of a write locker. What is a write locker? Write locker is a device which only one way data flows, in the sense it will copy the data from the evidence to the new device, but it will not send or write any data in the actual evidence, right? It's a special type of device. So that is where the cloned hard disk is only to be used for carrying out forensics. Try not to use any password cracking tools or login encrypted file partition. Ask the user. So if you are using any hacking tools, let's say there's a password, the user is not giving you the password, right, to access the file system. In that case, you cannot use any cracking tools for it, because then you cannot present that to the court of law. Okay, only user has to give it. Okay, any doubts here till now? Okay. Documentation: if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. As I told you, if you don't have a chain of custody, if you don't write everything properly, you cannot do anything with it. Label all the evidence and documents. Labeling is very, very important, and that has to be mentioned in the chain of custody as well. If possible, photograph each evidence separately along with labels. Okay. Now, reporting documentation. Next chapter. Reports based on supported by evidence should contain enough information and relate the entirety of the incident situation without the need of subjective or convoluted interpretation. Got my point? First of all, please be what happens in a general world is, suppose one of the incident happened, right, and people start just go for a conclusion that maybe this person did it, and maybe this user did it, and the whole investigation rotates around that thing, right? So the investigation itself is a state of bias. Got my point? So that is not how it should be. Without getting, so when you talk about digital investigation or forensic, you just have to present the facts in your analysis. You should not uh, add more to the facts depending on the story that you want to, which the company needs to project, right? Got my point? Any doubts here? Okay. When presenting evidence in court, the security practitioner should adhere to the below tenets. Admissibility: only evidence that is acceptable in the court may be presented. Accuracy: the evidence should be true and clear. Comprehensibility: withholding of evidence contrary to the perceived story may be a crime in self. That is what I was referring to, right? Means if you already have decided that this is the culprit, okay, or the user that has done the particular action, then during the investigation you may have signed some information which says otherwise, okay, and if you hide those kind of information, then it amounts to a crime, okay, in the court of law. Objectivity: the evidence should stand for itself and factual basis. Okay, so whatever you observe, whatever is the output of the digital investigation, you have to give to the court without any bias or without adding anything or removing anything from it. Am I clear? Any doubts till now? Anyone? Okay. Now, topic IDS, IPS, and threat intelligence. So, what is the IDS? So, IDS is nothing but a device which correlates. It's an advanced form of what you can say is firewall, right? So, mostly it is a perimeter security device which is implemented. Okay, any traffic that is coming that has from firewall. The difference is that here you have intelligence, okay, built it in the device. So any traffic that is coming to your organization, it will pass through the IDS, or maybe in the passive mode. IDS has the visibility of that traffic, and depending on the traffic, it can identify certain patterns depending on the technologies it has, and then it can generate a alert when it finds that some malicious traffic is coming to your organization, right? So that is what is a IDS, okay, intrusion detection system. And what is a IPS? IPS is nothing but the action that is taken on the intelligence, that is alert that is provided by the IDS. That is what IPS is basically. IDS in IPS is not a separate device. It is normally a same device. Okay. So what you can do, either you can log and send alerts, okay, when a particular pattern is detected, or immediately, as per your rules, the the device can also take action and maybe block certain traffics, right? So it works in both the modes. It can work in IDS mode or IPS mode. Okay. Types. Perimeter placements, IDS, IPS can be placed as on or with the gateway. That is the common place where you will find the IDS or IPS placement. Host-based, agents installed on various endpoints, detects malicious traffic between hosts. So basically, agents will be deployed there, but which will be reporting back to the IDS or IPS system. Network-based, placed on various points of the network as a means to monitor internal traffic and recognize malicious or suspect internally. Now, why it is required host-based and network-based? Any idea?
In
Yeah.
the host level, any publicly export ports.
See, not all, let's say, not all, so there is no 100% security even if you implement IDS, IPS, right? So there may be chances that one of your system got infected. Okay. Now, normally, if a hacker gets into one of the system, he will try to look and extend to other systems also, and that is where host based and network based IDS, IPS comes into picture, right? They already have similar patterns wherein if some of the host is trying to, let's say, interact with AD in some, not in a normal way but in some other way, doing a scan on a AD or something, if you have agents installed on a in the internal host, uh, okay, or network endpoints, then that comes into picture, right? You will get alerts, or it can be prevented. Am I clear? Yeah. Detection types. What is the way that they deviation from the baselines? It can check what are your baselines, and if there is some deviation that has happened from the baseline, then it may create an alert. Signature based, recognize known attack patterns. Heuristic, machine learning algorithms. Okay, so anyways, the heuristics also depends on the baselining. We'll discuss later on that. Any doubts here? Okay. Now, if you are implementing IDS or IPS systems, there are some trade-offs. First is maintenance. System will need regular maintenance, right? That means you have to update the device, you have to update the signatures, and someone has to be working on that. So obviously there's an overhead for that, right? Second point is overhead, impact on productivity, capacity, and performance. Now, if you are including multiple devices in your perimeter network, let's say firewall, IPS, IPS, so have all the traffic that is coming to and from your company goes through multiple lenses, right? That means multiple checks through these devices. So, so the trade-off is that there may be a performance issue, in the sense minor performance issue that goes into. But again, that all depends how much you are inspecting the traffic, right? So that trade-off you need to look into. And then comes false positives. So you may get alerts uh, that may not be actually attacked, but then you have to look into it and check if it is actual attack or it's a false positive. Now comes threat intelligence. What is threat intelligence? Evidence-based knowledge, including context, mechanism, indicators, implications, and actionable advice about existing or emerging threats as assets. So there are multiple organizations worldwide uh, who are providing threat intelligence. So they look into the TTPs of any of the attack. Let's say there's a APT attack going on. You are aware about APT, right? Advanced Persistent Threat Attacks. So these are very resourceful attacks. Okay. So if similar kind of attacks are going on, or some hacking activity is going on any part of the world, so what these organizations do, they get similar patterns. They have the pattern information and all those kind of kill chain information, which they pass on to the signatures, pass on to the companies that take subscription of their services, right? And provide the intelligence about the threat. Okay. So that is there. So what is important is this threat action, threat intelligence that you are getting should be actionable. That means it should include IP addresses or the source of the attack that is coming, right? So that you can take some actionable action. You can take some actions to avoid those kind of attacks. Maybe you block certain IP address or some IP ranges, or let's say some domains, right? That kind of action that you can take. It should be timely. It should not happen that the attack is happening today and you are getting the threat information after a week. Makes no sense, right? You are already affected. It should be relevant. That means, yeah, whatever information is you are getting, uh, it should be logical, in the sense it should be relevant to your business, right? Uh, that is there. Then accurate, the information should be accurate, then only you will be able to take perfect action on that, right? If the information itself is inaccurate, then you cannot take any action. Contextual goes beyond indicators, IP or hashes, and includes attack motivation, capabilities, TTPs, tactics, techniques, procedures, and potential impact, right? This kind of information is very essential when you are trying to avoid certain kind of attacks, right? Shared, often the shared with ISACs, information sharing analysis centers, government agency, example CERT, NIST, CISA. Uh, have you ever interacted with CERT? Anyone? Has your organization interacts with CERT?
Yeah, only if it is a major incident, very critical or high.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So also periodically CERT also sends certain recommendations, correct? And certain informations about the latest attacks and stuff, right? Enables risk management. Obviously risk management is how to reduce your threats. So those kind of risks due to the threats, and that threat intelligence plays a major role there. Any queries here? Okay. SIM and SOAR. What is a SIM? Basically, look at this, that you have multiple devices, security devices, or network devices implemented all over your company organization, right? And all the devices create logs. Even your system, let's say Windows or Linux system, they also create logs, right? Now, it is not humanly possible to go and check each of the logs, right? But if you don't check the logs, then there is a possibility that there is an attack happening on your organization. You have no visibility of, right? So how do you work? How what to do in such situations? Basically, you should have a SIM implemented. What does a SIM do is basically uh, it it is a place where all the logs are visible to this particular device, and depending on the capability, it has the ability to correlate all the logs and give you correct information in your dashboard of that particular SIM. Okay, so the functions that it has is it can aggregation, that is basically taking logs from multiple places and showing you the big picture. That is what aggregation means. Normalization, that means logs from different devices can be in different format. So SIM has the ability to normalize it, in the sense make it in the same format, so that it can be ingested in the dashboard reports. Correlation, since it is getting information from multiple devices, so it can correlate a particular pattern, or let's say a particular incident, with lots of other devices logs. Okay, secure storage, most of these devices have option of storing the logs or archive the logs, so that is also there. Analysis, obviously a person can analysis based on the logs that has been collected. And reporting, it gives you very good reports about a particular incident, if you are looking for forensics and stuff, right? Any doubts here? Okay, now what's a SOAR? SOAR is nothing, secure orchestration, automation and response. So this is, you can say, when you add the actionability over a SIM, it becomes SOAR. That means now we were using SIM to give us correlate all the logs and give us mask the patterns and give us a report, right? Now, when you enable this kind of device to action on that particular outcome, then it becomes a SOAR. As simple as that. That is how I look into it, right? So how you do it? Basically, you create playbooks. Playbooks is what? Is a document or a checklist that defines how to verify an incident, to rule out any false positive or false negatives, right? Uh, and then use the run books. Run book is implementing, means if there is an incident detected, what action the same SOAR can take on it, you define it before implementing it, right? So it has to be predefined, so that when a SOAR sees that a particular type of attack is happening, it will act as per your playbooks and run books. Am I clear with that? Okay. Then comes UEBA. What is a UEBA? User entity behavior analytics, mostly used for insider threats, right? If you have a very if your company is, let's say, a bank, okay, and you want to monitor any insider threats as well, so mostly people go with UEBA solutions. What is it? Basically, it detects all internal users and devices for any abnormalities. Okay, so baseline behavior modeling. So basically, how you define it? Basically, it will first observe and create. You need to create a baseline. What is normal in your organization? What kind of communication or what kind of employee behavior is common? So that kind of baseline you have to first define, and then entity monitoring, not just user. It will also monitor maybe some of the devices as well. Then risk scoring, you have to set it. Machine learning with AI. So these, nowadays the UABAs are having machine learning and that AI component as well. So it detects anomaly, contextual awareness. So that has to be fed into it. Integrates with SIM and SOAR. Behavioral unretrieved static rules. So basically, uh, it gives you the ability or to just not look into the outside threats, but internal threats as well. Okay. Any doubts here? Has anybody implemented a UABA in their organization, or have you seen it? Anyone? Yeah, these are costly solutions. Means although my company makes it, used to make it, but yeah, I've seen that the very less companies use it unless they are in the top threat matrix. Okay. Topic 9: egress monitoring.
Just a quick clarification. This sometimes these organizations go through this sending a test email, whether we respond to that or not. Is that part of the UBA?
No, no, no. That is employment employee awareness program, right?
No, no, it is awareness program only, but it's part of it where sometimes they send out intentionally and they
Yeah, yeah.
mention next day that people have whether they realized it was a call. So basically, they stand look at the behavior of people, somebody responding and some not responding and all that. So I mean, it happens in organization. That's why I was asking whether that's
No,
possible.
I understand that, but it is not part of UEBA.
Oh, I see.
UBA, yeah, yeah, UBA will mostly be silently watching the actions, right? Something
Oh,
of
I
those.
see. I thought because it's part of the user behavior, if that would become that's
Let's
the
say, just to give you an example,
okay.
suppose your office hours is 9 to 6. Okay. Now, if your system is being used for accessing some confidential information at around night 11 p.m. or let's say morning 1 p.m. Morning 1 a.m. Okay, so that's a abnormality, right? And that will not match the baseline. What is your behavior, right? At what time you work, correct? And that will be flagged. Got my point?
Okay, got it.
Similar to this, I just give a basic example, but
Right, right.
this is how it works, right?
Okay, sure. Thanks.
So just one query.
Yeah,
So we have this EDR in place. So
yeah.
is that also means we get couple of incident through that. So is it considered as UEBA?
See, all EDRs are not UEBA, but yeah,
Okay.
if your EDR has a UEBA component,
Mm.
yeah, that
Oh,
works.
okay, okay, got it, got it.
Okay,
Thank you for
so
that.
that particular thing has to be
Mm.
means that vendor needs
Configuration.
to integrate that UEBA component into your EDR.
Oh, okay, fine, got it, got it. Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Okay, topic 9: egress monitoring. Now tell me, we all look into the traffic that is coming in our traffic in our organization. Why we need to look for egress monitoring? We look at the ingress, right? Not the egress. Why egress is important? Anyone?
If the user knowingly, unknowingly, intentionally, or unintentionally sending out company important documents or making some sort of transaction between the internal network and outside.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
spot on. So
Yep.
basically, we are looking for any data leakage that is intentional or unintentional done by any of the inside users, right? For that, we are looking for, we are doing egress monitoring as well. So mostly, when we talk about egress monitoring, we are looking for DLP solutions. Now, when you search for the full form of DLP, someone says is data loss protection, someone says is data leakage protection. So all is the same. It's a DLP. Let's stick to that. Okay. So DLP tools function on comparing data leaving the control of the organization and rule set to determine. So basically, you have to define baselines and you have to give patterns. Okay, and also for DLP to work properly, labeling needs to be done properly on your data. If the labeling is not done properly, DLP will only match pattern. Got my point? Am I clear? Yeah. So rule set, what the DLP uses, signature based strings that readily identifiable. What is that? Something like, let's say, how Aadhaar ID looks like, in the sense Aadhaar number, okay, or let's say credit card number, how it looks like, right? So those kind of signature are already there with the DLP systems. They sit on the customer. They sit in the multiple channels, in the sense they also have an agent on the host. They look after the network also, and particularly they look after the email channel also. Okay, so that any information going on, if it matches a particular signature, it will block it. Okay, it will send an alert to the user as well as to the administrator. Pattern matching, DLP might restrict the export of individual names. Okay, labeling, as I was telling, if you don't label, so if you are labeling each and every information or data correctly, so you will get best results on a DLP environment. DLP deployment facets, data at rest, agents in data storage locations, data in motion, inspects outbound communication traffic. You can include it in collaboration with your email channels or network channels. Data in use, agents installed on endpoint devices that monitor what's happening in the memory. Okay, those kind of information. DLP inclusion, data discovery, classification, categorization. Nowadays, DLP, when you are buying DLP, it also has a capability to for creating the baseline, or for labeling also. They have add-ons where it can scan the whole hard disk and give you a list of data that is available, and then you can, depending on your rule set, you can define it with proper labels. It has ability to monitor, and then enforcement. Once the training, so enforcement can be done in 3 phases. One is training. What is training? Basically, suppose unintentionally, if any of the user is sending a confidential document, or let's say some information outside, which is against the policy of the company, the user will get an alert, right? So that is indirectly training the user that whatever information you are sending, it does not match the company policy. So that is how you are training your employees, right? Second is attribution, assigning responsibility. Also, after getting the alert, also if the user is, if you have sent it, allowing it, okay, or going for a bypass, okay, then the user is responsible for his actions, right? And then comes the of enforcement, stringency or prevention. In that case, even if the user tries, it will not be bypassed, it will be blocked. Okay. Topic 10, provisioning, baselining, and automation. What is provisioning? Provisioning is the process of creating, configuring, and enabling access to IT systems, services, and resources for user and systems. So here, our first topic comes into picture. When you are provisioning, give the least privilege. Okay, that is most important. Baselining is the process of establishing a known, secure, and approved configuration or state of the system or network, which serves as a reference point for future comparisons, right? So basically, let's say, let me give you an example. Uh, a particular server in your company is accessed during a particular time, right? When the during the business hours, right? So what kind of traffic hits that server, you can make a baseline out of it, right? So the expectation is that the server is not being attacked when these heavy traffic is coming during the working hours. But if similar type of traffic is coming at the night 2 o'clock, then obviously it's some kind of attack or anomaly that has to be reported, right? So baseline helps in detecting anomalies. Got my point? That is why it is very, very important process. And then come automation. Now we are going for automations because uh, you can't leave everything on human beings or us people to look into, right? Automation has to be in place. Why automation? Because first of all, it will be implemented company for the whole company. So, and second, it does not have a fatigue. Okay, and whatever code is being implemented, it will be neutral to or overally it will be deployed equally in the whole system, right? So that is where automation comes into picture. Any doubts, any queries?
A quick clarification on that DLP thing.
Yeah.
Is it specific only for addressing like sensitive data, or is it generally any data for that? For example, it could be data breach in some form, right, or hacking. Uh, is it put on top of any other tool just to minimize any sensitive data going out, or so I'm just asking in case any related question.
See,
How?
please understand. DLP is also a process. It will scan the data, right?
Right.
And mostly companies use it to stop any sensitive information going out. Now,
Right.
if you are obviously data has to go out from the company, normal data, you should not restrict it. Correct? Then your business will not work.
Right.
So DLP is implemented for stopping any leakage of sensitive data. That is how it is, right?
Okay.
And the more strict rules you will make, there will be a overhead, right? Please understand that also.
Right. Right. That's
So
a
you have
big
to balance it out.
right. So do you think DLP is a solution for data breach also? So if
That is what the industry is using, right?
okay,
DLP solutions.
I
Yeah,
see. Okay, got it. Thank you.
yeah. Welcome. Okay, now very important point, knowledge check, whatever we discussed. Question 1, in the context of asset security, which of the following best ensures the confidentiality and of sensitivity data stored in a removable media? What's the answer?
Encryption data and the renewal.
Absolutely correct and spot on. Okay, we discussed this.
Yes.
Question 2, which of the following action should be taken when an online trading company discovers a network attack in progress?
Isolated the affected
C.
network.
Answer C.
Absolutely. Because shutting off the network access points may hamper your business. Dump all the event logs to a removable media will not contain the attack. Enable trace logging on all events. That can be done later. That is a part of investigation, right? But first, you have to contain the attack. So isolate the affected network segment. Okay. Question 3, your organization has deployed a default Windows web server. You receive an adversary from CERT notifying you to act of active exploitation of a zero-day vulnerability in Apache web servers. As a part of information security management, ISM team, what would be the most effective course of action? This is a tricky question. Please answer. And everybody should answer.
Develop and prepare a backup server to be standby.
Okay. Others, all having lunch?
Mhm.
I need answers from everyone. Tell me. I received only one answer, that is C. Anyone else? Any different answer? I will stop calling out names now. Lokesh, what's your answer?
I'm just analyzing. Give me one minute.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, take your time. I can give you some time on this. Neha, any answer? Akshay, Rajesh,
See, my answer is
C,
C,
right?
right? Mm-hmm.
Anyone
Anyone
else?
else?
Any?
Any?
I have.
I have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's a
echoing.
coin.
So
So
what we
what
can
we
do
can
is
do
like
is
we
that
can
we
look
can look
into
into
the
the
systems. Like
systems,
say,
like say,
I'll go
and
with
go with
answer
answer
D.
D.
We can
We can
closely
closely
monitor.
monitor.
Okay.
Okay.
Nobody with
Nobody with
answer, eh?
answer, eh?
Do you
Do you
remember,
remember,
Akshay? I
Akshay?
think
I think
your
your
mic is
mic
on.
is on. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Do you remember log4j? What happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Christmas holiday and everybody's leaves got cancelled and all team personnel and commence patching, right? That is what happened. Okay. So, who said answer D? Someone said
Yes.
answer D, right? Yeah.
Sampath.
Yeah,
I,
Sampath,
I
what was the reason for that? Selecting answer D?
See, at sometimes when we talk about these zero-day vulnerabilities, also it would not cause any much issues into the system. So rather than that, getting into the panic mode and then installing all the patches that are available and causing more disruption, so we just leave it and try to understand what exactly the threat actor is trying to do, and then slowly we can prepare a plan of action and then start executing the step by step in order to mitigate those what is that vulnerabilities.
Okay. Is it so if you are told that zero-day attack is going on unpatched Windows systems, right? And you are using similar type of devices, you will wait and watch?
No, but we can isolate it, right? But we can isolate from the existing network and then try to, then we can start looking into it. I mean, that is what I felt, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, zero-day critical
Because
vulnerability
because
has
they are
to be
not
attended,
yet,
correct?
as the servers are not, I mean, the web servers are not yet affected. So it is just to better to monitor and see. So that's why
How will
many.
you monitor a zero-day?
No, even in the case of log4j, like if you see, even it is a zero. I mean, I do not know much about the history about it, but it didn't cause a significant impact. I mean, the
Who said?
log4.
No, Log4j was used to uh, hack multiple servers. It is one of the best attack tools.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, I go with answer D. Okay. Sampath, you chose the correct answer, but the explanation was, I need more from the explanation point. And I will just highlight here we have received a zero-day exploitation for Apache web servers, which is not a default Windows web server. Windows default web server is what?
IIS.
Yeah. So that is why we will go with D. Tricky one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. The next question. As a part of information security management team, you have received information that your critical servers have been compromised and hackers are actively exploiting data. What would be the most effective course of action? Again, a tricky one.
Answer D. Like, see, if we are talking about exfiltrating the data,
Yeah.
I will see both my inbound and outbound traffic. If my outbound traffic is very high and to a particular IP, the destination IP, which is calling my information, so that way I can identify, right?
Okay. Anyone
Yeah.
else?
Answer is B.
D or B?
B. B.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Want to go with answer D, B? Anyone? Ankita, Akshay, Raju, Lokesh? Anyone? Any answer?
Very wild guess. It's A.
A. Okay, good. Anyone other than that? Okay, just to give you a heads up, right? CISSP is not a technical question, means certification. Okay, it is a management certification. You all are very good technically, but you need to get into management mind frame, right? So, who are you? You are a information security management team. That means you are a manager, right? Do you have the authority of doing any of the technical things that are mentioned in A, B, or D?
No.
No, no.
What will you do? C,
Engage
engage
the.
the IR team, right? Because they are trained to handle that situation. You just need to invoke the internal process and engage the correct team. Got my point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Every time we go into that mode where we are working. So,
Absolutely. That is
yeah,
why
Yeah.
I gave
yeah,
this question, right? Similar
correct.
questions you will get in CISSP. So your mind frame should be very clear, right? You are sitting in a management portfolio, and with that thought, you have to give the answer, not from your technical background or something, right?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, with this, I end my session. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you so much for sharing the knowledge. This would be helpful for a lot. This
Exactly.
is in general to CSA and also you and both the presenters. Just in case if you can provide some mock questions in that respective domains as you complete it, an exhaustive kind of such similar questions, like instead of one or two, you can provide some more as a just as an attachment, or send it to our email and we can try and practice them.
You don't have to wait for your email. I think Satya's team is already putting some questions in the portal, SIB portal, right?
Okay, okay.
You all have the access to it, correct?
Right, I think there is a certain
There's mock test
caveat there.
actually, mock test which is there available. Maybe you can go through that. That also will help you.
Okay.
In the LMS portal itself, there is one section for mock test. After the courses are over, the mock test also will be released, I believe.
I see. Okay, thank you.
So on that note, if anyone has any questions for Harinder ji,
Okay, I will take it as a uh,
okay,
good
anyone, if
good
they
task.
have,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
at the moment you may not have, but later if you have anything, you can certainly reach out to him. He is very helpful. You can reach out to him on LinkedIn. He's available. On that note, we want to close the session. Before closing, just want to highlight certain things about our upcoming programs on CSA Bangalore chapter. So if you go to our home page, you will find here what our upcoming programs are. Where this is a good opportunity for you all to connect with all the professionals across Bangalore and maybe other states also who are coming for the event. So this is our annual event which is going to happen on 4th of September 2025. It is at Grand Sheraton Whitefield. So you can register here. We have a pre-release offer where the price rates are slashed off so that you avail much at much lesser price than what we are going to give in upcoming months or weeks. And we have upcoming meetup. If you some of you have already attended our monthly meetup, if I can see from the names which are displaying here. So we have one on the upcoming month, which is on 3rd of May, which is on a similar theme on AI augmented security. This is purely on AI. And you can also go through our podcast. There are some podcasts which are released on CSA Bangalore pages, both on LinkedIn and I think on the YouTube and maybe Insta and Facebook also, where you can get experts insights on the upcoming topics and threat intelligence and Gen AI and cybersecurity. So these are some of the topics on which these expert leaders have been speaking. You can go through those as well. Those are all free. I think there's no charge on this. And these are the webinars, as you're aware. This last webinar, which is going to be on upcoming week, which is on the deep dive on domain 8. That is to be concluded. And then there are some testimonials if you want to know how we have been doing, what is that people are taking advantage of while during the process of attending these events. You can certainly go through our testimonials from few of our leaders who have attended, who have been attending. Actually, it's not that they have attended this first time. They've been attending our events. And one more thing I wanted to tell you is on the uh, another, other than this one on 3rd of May, there's another event which is going to happen on 17th of May as well. So you can attend those as well. So on that note, if you have any queries or anything, you can certainly reach out to our email that is on support@csabangalorechapter.com. You can send us an email. We will be happy to respond to you all. Any doubts, you can reach out to us. On that note, I want to close the session. Thanks for everyone. Thanks everyone for being patient and listening to the speaker as well. And thanks Harinderjeet for extending all your support all the time.
Welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care. Best of luck
Thanks
for your exam.
everyone. Happy
Yes,
weekend.
thank you very much.
Thank you.